My name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com, as well as a host on the Rinse Radio Network. The ravenous pack of wolves in Washington, D.C. have managed to once again put on a show, put on a made-for-TV drama to convince us that we were on the verge of economic, financial collapse, Armageddon in this country, if we didn't throw you, the American people, another $2.4 trillion in debt. And by a vote of 269 to 161, Bonner was able to get the House of Representatives to do just that. Put the American people right in the crosshairs once again. Time after time after time again, we're led to the verge of a declared crisis only to have our financial future robbed from us, to have our liberty taken away from us, and ensuring that we will end up nothing more than indentured service in this once great republic that's turning into nothing more than a banana republic. What we end up with this $2.4 trillion increase is a guaranteed debt load on the American people with fictitious promises of cuts in spending over the next 10 years. Now, it took from George Washington to Ronald Reagan to amass $2.4 trillion in national debt, and our House of Representatives, in one foul swoop, managed to increase the debt ceiling by that very same amount, the amount that they will spend by 2013. And they tell us that in 10 years they're going to whittle it down by another $2.4 trillion. Let's look at the last promise they made us. A $38 billion cut in order to get a budget deal so the government wouldn't shut down just a few months ago. When the dust settled, the smoke cleared, and cooler heads prevailed, and smarter people looked at this deal that they put together, it wasn't $38 billion in cuts. It was more smoke and mirrors. It was more anticipated savings. It was more Congressional Budget Office smoke screen, and it really ended up being $353 million in cuts, not $38 billion. So over the next 10 years, the likelihood of this $2.4 trillion of savings being realized is the exact same likelihood that we will be out of Iraq in that same amount of time, or Afghanistan, or Libya, or the Middle East, or we will stop backing the too big to fail. It's guaranteed this savings isn't coming, but it is absolutely guaranteed that that debt is going to be put onto your back. Worse than this debt that you will incur, like it or not, worse than the fact that your children, your grandchildren, are going to be straddled with more debt than is even imaginable. No longer are you going to have a very small group of people, 535 people, sitting in Washington, D.C., governing over your life, robbing your financial future, because it's just too difficult to get a consensus among 535 people in the House of Representatives and the Senate. So we're going to whittle it down in this bill to a 12-man super Congress. 6 on the left, 6 on the right. They will put together legislation. It will be fast-tracked through the Senate and fast-tracked through the House with the full backing of the House leadership and the Senate leadership, almost guaranteed to be passed. And that is where the austerity is going to come from, giving cover to the rest of the 535 members of Congress to go ahead and say it wasn't their idea. They were just following the advice of the select Super Congress committee. Austerity is coming to this country. Unfortunately, we're not Greece. At least the people of Greece saw it for what it was, and they took to the streets in righteous indignation. They deserve to be upset. We deserve to be upset. We sit in a country where Bank of America can make $4.4 billion in profit and receive a $1.9 billion tax refund from the IRS. General Electric, over 5 years, can make $26.3 billion in profit and receive $4 billion in tax break. Goldman Sachs in 2008 paid 1.1% of their profit in federal income tax, and they received nearly $800 billion from the Federal Reserve and from the Treasury. These are too big to fail firms. These are people who are never going to have to worry about the burden of debt on their back. They're the creators of the debt. They're the ones who issue the threats. If we don't throw the American people further into debt, we will tank the economy. And they've done it, and they will do it again. Citibank, $4 billion in profit, 0 in taxes, and received nearly $2.5 trillion from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Secretary. Right now, we have 1.7 million homes in this nation in some form of foreclosure. People have been thrown out of their homes, lost their jobs, lost their future. And we have our Congress throwing us another $2.4 trillion in debt. The people that went to D.C. in this midterm wave election that were going to change everything, a few of them are good-meaning people who went there and said and did exactly what they said they were going to do. They would not sign off on any increase in the debt ceiling. And we see the same Republican Party that was kowtowing to them in 2011 turn on them like the pack of wolves that they are. John McCain calls them Tea Party hobbits. Our own vice president was out there today calling them nothing but a bunch of terrorists. The terrorists are in seats of power in Washington, D.C. These senators, vice presidents, these people who sit there for decades and decades and kowtow to the financial elite, pass legislation that's going to make them succeed while the rest of the people in this country pay the bill. These are the financial terrorists who've led the country to where we're at now. From George Washington to Ronald Reagan, $2.4 trillion. And your United States House of Representatives managed to do that in one foul swoop in 15-minute vote tonight. Stories are attached. That's all I got.